Okay, we'll start tonight's first agenda here with flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Hoover?
Here.
Dr. Crowe?
Here.
Mrs. Crowe?
Here.
Mrs. Lee? Mr. Rocco? Mr. Basil? Mr. Westrick?
Here.
Ms. Zinchuk?
Here.
Okay, we want to welcome you all for this special meeting about the permanent closure of the high school. Not quite sure when that'll happen, but we need to have this to satisfy requirements to the state. So I'm going to, since this is more of a legal proceeding, I'm going to let our solicitor handle this so that I don't do it incorrectly.
All right, thanks, Doctor. As you all probably know, my name is Toby McAway, and I'm solicitor for the Northern Cambria School District. Tonight's the time and place for a public hearing regarding the potential or possible closure of the Northern Cambria High School. Essentially, tonight's hearing is an opportunity for the public to provide comment or testimony or evidence about the closure of the high school. I would note that the district has complied with its publication obligations. Notice of this hearing was published in the mainline newspaper on Thursday, February 13th, 2025, and in the Tribune Democrat on February 15th, 2025. Tonight, for those who want to provide any comment or testimony, we're going to follow our normal public comment guidelines. You should be a resident or taxpayer of the district. You should announce your name and address before you provide public comment, and you'll be limited to 5 minutes of a public statement. For those who aren't here or wish to provide comment after the meeting, we will hold the record open so you can submit a comment or evidence or testimony in writing anytime before June 1st, 2025. With that, Mr. Johnson, would you like to provide any sort of commentary on this hearing before we begin?
No, other than, again, I have a limited amount of experience here, obviously, in Northern Cambria, but I know that the idea of closing a building permanently is a very, very emotional one and certainly very important to many residents of the community. Schools have a very long history, and they have served a great many people in this room and around this entire area. So I think it's well understood by the board and certainly by me that this is a difficult topic to approach and difficult subject to approach. And hopefully, creatively, we can find some uses for the building that will enable it to extend its life in some way. But on that, we understand it's an emotional subject. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess with that, we'll have, I don't think there was a sign-up sheet, was there, for this?
I did have one.
For this part of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, good. We will use that. Okay, thank you. And as Mr. McElwain has said, that you need to say your name, your place of residence, and you will be limited to 5 minutes. So the first one up is Dolly Sassway.
I am Dolly Sassway, Susquehanna Township, and I would like to know if you did a survey of the building, if anybody has checked out the building, is it feasible to keep it, or is it condemned, should be condemned? If you keep it, how much would the insurance cost on keeping that building? And I'm not emotional about this. I wanted to close the building when I was on the board before and move it down here, so that has now happened. I think the building should be sold if possible, and the district should not have rentals or be responsible for finding people to occupy that building. Let somebody else buy it, get insurance and the taxes, it's a tax property, and let them make housing project out of it, whatever. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. How much are we allowed to engage in this since this is a thing?
As much as you want.
Okay, Dolly, just one of the questions you had was, we did have it appraised,
Okay.
okay? Different sections, different, the way it was split up a little bit. We have not come to conclusion on how we have to handle it from there, though, okay? We've had limited discussions on that yet, so there's a few things we'll have to have done before we can do anything else with it, okay?
Yeah,
So-
one last comment since you brought that up. A lot of people think the gymnasium is great. Yeah, it was great, but you just built another one. So you don't need 3 gymnasiums. This auditorium was always used for everything, even high school, graduation, whatever. This has always been the auditorium. You do not need that auditorium. So that's,
Thank you.
yes.
Okay, next would be Joe Hetrick.
I'm Joe Hedrick, I'm from Susquehanna Township. My address is 308 Main Street, North Cambria. And I believe Mrs. Sassaway made very good comments about the high school. We've invested, taxpayers have invested millions of dollars out here to put an addition onto this building. And I was under the understanding the high school would be permanently closed or sold. And not reopen it for some other thing, school activity or something. Because I believe that's a waste of taxpayers' money. Once we've invested into this building here to move all the population into one building. And that. But I don't know how other people feel about it, and I know I've heard what the gentleman said there. A lot of people have, I don't know, some kind of feelings towards that high school up there. That's a building. That's not for taxpayers to keep because somebody has an affection for that building up there. That's not being a good stewards of taxpayers' money. And yous are the board, and we elected you as people. And you're to work for the taxpayers, not for your own personal things. And that's how I feel about this. And I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you, Joe, very much. Okay, that's all we have signed up to speak. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
I didn't even know about this till she told me
It-
10 minutes ago.
It's okay, go ahead.
So I appreciate you letting me speak. Though believe me,
Say your name.
oh, Jim Rocco.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in northern Cambria. Although I perfectly sympathize with these people, with the taxpayers' money, which is why, as many of you know, I was kind of against the building of this school. I just didn't know if we could afford it. And one of the main reasons was because I didn't think the school could do the best job it could for the students with just the 2 gyms. And I know when we tried to do this project a few years ago, the big sticking point was always the gym. We just built that 3rd gym. We just built it. It's the newest part of the entire school district because 2 gyms just wasn't enough to allow for, mostly in basketball season, varsity, junior high, and all the elementary programs. Although now in the spring, luckily the weather's nice today, but it's not always. Believe me, I sympathize. I'm not gonna be around that much longer. I think people have to keep in mind the school district is here for the best benefit of the kids. As a taxpayer, I don't wanna pay for it either, but for the best benefit of the students, I don't know how we're gonna survive without it. I think we need the storage, I think we need the gym, I don't know how the track is gonna survive up there completely by itself. You understand, there's no facilities up on top. All there is 1 bathroom for boys, 1 bathroom for girls, which literally 1 commode for the boys, 1 commode, 2 commodes for the girls, and that's it. There's no other space. So if you're just gonna take a bus and drop the kids off up there at 3 o'clock, they're left to their own devices. Right now, that building is so full of stuff, you couldn't get 10 kids in there without having them running into equipment. There's nowhere to get out of the weather. Okay? Even during the school being there, allows the kids a place to get dressed. They don't have to get dressed there, they'd have to get bussed up. Junior high practice ends different than varsity, even varsity practice ends at different times. You're gonna have kids driving back and forth the whole time during track season, or you're gonna be running buses back and forth the whole time. None of that happens now. I know that's a small thing when you take into account, you know, the amount of expense the gym is gonna be. I just know that in a town this size, when you lose something, it's gone forever, okay? I spent so many years keeping the Barnesboro pool open with me and my parents, basically, and a few other people in town. Once we quit, it was closed. You'll never see a swimming pool in this town again. And that's the same thing that's gonna happen to that gym. Once it's gone forever. I know it's an expense. I know. I'm hoping that the borough can help with it a little bit. We had a thing with the library. We took the library people through there. Maybe they could move up there. Their facilities now are really small. No, not close at all to where they need to be. I know it's gonna be an expense, but, and I've said this at borough meetings too, many times, the one thing this town needs, here and the borough, is a grant writer. Maybe there's something out there, but you will never know if you don't have a full-time grant writer working for the school district and the borough. And again, whatever you can do to possibly hold on to the school, I just hope you can do it. It's gonna be a huge loss to this district, more than people really know at this point in time. So I know that's not much, and I don't have a checkbook to write you $1 million check, and that might be what it takes, but believe me, if there's any way on this earth to keep it, you need to try to keep it. Sorry it took so long.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, that's all we have on the list, so,
Can I speak? I didn't know there was a list.
yes, Diane. Make sure you just say your name and where you're from.
Okay, I'm Diane Waxmunsky, 622 Municipal Road, Northern Cambria, Susquehanna Township. I understand what Jim is saying about, my concern is for the kids, because I don't know what the appraisal showed, and that, I thought I was going to come tonight not knowing what a hearing was. Never came to 171 years. But, so I thought I was gonna learn something and not speak. But when you eliminate the locker rooms at the high school, it eliminates it brings into the picture the potential of eliminating the sport on the hill, on the track. Because that's where the kids change, and that's where, you know, they go up the hill to the track. So my concern is what's going to happen to some of the sports that use that track and use that locker room. Not so much, you don't need to take my picture.
Sorry.
You know, I didn't even put my good coat on. I'm more concerned about what's gonna happen, and I know everyone says we're here for the kids and we're here for education, and I'm a big champion of putting education before sports. But, likewise, sports always has a role and builds the kinds of things that the classroom teacher can't ever build. So I don't want to ever not have sports. And some kids who are not aggressive and competitive, as my son was, he excelled in track. He excelled in swimming because it was my personal best. And so I would hate to do anything to jeopardize the locker rooms, the potential of having the track. If the track would leave, the community would be up in arms because they're up there all the time. I wish I was there more. I mean, I know somebody is up there 6 o'clock every morning. So, you know, my concern is for the kids and to not eliminate programs. And we've had things come and things go. So I was hoping to get information tonight on what potential there was for with the appraisals hand in hand to learn something about where we're headed. Because I was on that committee that went to the high school and did a tour. And the library was very interested in the cafeteria. Their eyes, and you know, they were very interested in, we could put this here, and then we realized they could come in the back and have story time outside. And so there is potential with that building, even though part of the building I wouldn't want my kids in. And it's, you know, it's being used. So, you know, like when do we get to that? Are we getting to that later? I mean, are we going on record supporting something we don't know anything about? Like, I can't support the appraisal for combining A and C or D and F or whatever those different things were in the agenda, because I don't even know what they are. That was all done privately, confidentially, executive session somewhere, because I'm here all the time, so I never heard that. Like D and E was put together, so, you know, like, I was looking back through the minutes, so my question is, when do we hear what you guys are thinking about the high school? You know, I'm telling you, I can't make a decision on what you're thinking, because I don't know what you're thinking. And I think there needs to be more information than what I have available to me, just looking back in old minutes. There's nothing there.
Oh,
Thank you,
I'm sorry.
Diane.
I will also say, I don't know if you know that, there's no heat in that building at the track. There's no heat. So that means there's no water until April, which means there's no bathrooms until April. There's one porta-john up there. If the kids normally just go down and go to the locker room again. So that whole building would need it. You'd have to add heat, and you're gonna have to do something, even just in March, because one porta-john is probably not enough for the 40, 50 kids that are up there between junior high and varsity. There's just a lot of issues that I don't know you're aware of. The building has no heat, and so therefore no water until April, and so therefore no bathrooms until April. And last year, even the first meets, there was no bathrooms. The kids had to go to the locker room, even the other team had to go to the locker room. So those are all issues that I don't even know if anybody's aware of that need to be thought out. I got another meeting, sorry. Thank you, sorry
Thank you,
to
Jim.
talk twice.
Okay, well, that's all we have signed up or want to speak, I guess, or? Okay, that's it. I'm gonna,
Oh, what, is there any way of sharing with the public what the options mean? Is there anything keeping us
I
from
don't have it
sharing
with
the
me,
public, with the public, what the options mean?
That's a decision the board can certainly make. The purpose, and just to be clear, everyone, I appreciate your comments and your concerns. The sole issue tonight is to take statements and testimony and evidence on whether the high school should be closed as an academic building, starting what I assume will be at the beginning of the fall semester. So what happens to the high school, whether it's sold, refurbished, or used for another purpose, that's all stuff that the board can talk about with public input if the board, obviously desires, but that's not the purpose of this hearing.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yes, and there would be no reason to keep that information from the public, it's not, the appraisals and the plans.
The appraisal itself,
Well,
or the future plans?
The options, like A and B and C, one of the options includes getting rid of the track with
Oh,
the building.
I
People
mean,
would wanna know
that's up to
that.
the discretion of the board, yeah, and I assume
Right.
that in the future, as the board discusses what to do with that building, and the different options, that will be done in public, yes.
Okay, and then I would also, I'll make a statement. When we first started talking about the building consolidation project, we did determine that we need that third gym. We really do. The gym that was replaced, the new gym in the back of this school was never built large enough to accommodate what we needed to accommodate.
It wasn't supposed to, it was a practice gym.
Right, well, and it's not enough. We don't have enough gym space.
But don't you have a declining enrollment?
Not to the point where we don't need the third gym. Now, there is an option where the taxpayers don't bear the brunt of the school having that gym up there. I had a committee formed where we had worked with Senator Langerholt's office. I had staffers from Congressman Fetterman's office. I had staffers from John Joyce's office who wanted to back us. We had a grant writer from the county who was willing to help us with whatever we needed. The first thing we were going to do was get a grant for the feasibility study to talk about demolishing the classroom portion of the high school. And the reason that I called Senator Langerholt was because he was instrumental in having the old Richland High School turned into what is now the East Hills Rec. And that's a very big part of their community. And I was hoping that we could do something here so that Northern Cambria would have a gymnasium. It would make a beautiful home for the library. I even spoke with someone from the Department of Health who was willing to talk about having pop-up medical clinics, which would open us up to more different types of grant funding to take care of what we need to do up there. And ultimately, the building would not be the property of the school district. It would be turned over to a 501c3 like perhaps the rec, and they would manage it.
And they would pay the insurance
Well, sure, I mean, yeah,
and no sewage, water, sewer
Correct.
and stuff, all that adds up. I
Well-
know it, I know what.
Dolly, all we can tell you about the appraisal, you asked about it being condemned, it was not appraised as being condemned, okay? So we have options, we just have not explored them as a group yet, okay?
Maybe,
Pretty preliminarily so far.
you know, Jim comes in here, he left, he's not here to hear this now, and he's gone on about the swimming pool. Of course, the swimming pool was lost up there. I don't wanna badger you, but was anything put into renovation about the swimming pool? I don't wanna lose that swimming pool, I don't care about the borough swimming pool. And if you keep this third gym, or just the high school gym, it's gonna be the third gym, there's gonna be enough money to keep renovating and keeping that pool. It's very expensive to keep up. Sooner or later, you guys are gonna, if you didn't or you know, money, costs a lot of money to keep that up.
Roland would be the one to ask.
And
Well, the only thing that I will say is that I think we've had discussions before, and the borough had mentioned about joining in as part of, like Danielle says, a community type thing. We as a school district cannot go after any of those kinds of grants. Those are all typically DCED type that go to municipalities. So the best case scenario is if we could jointure with a rec committee or somebody who is willing to take on that and have them take over that portion of the building, as she said, knock over the front end, you know, unless there's some business that would possibly want the front portion, it's gonna be difficult to try to separate those portions. But if the main thrust or the main concern is to have the gym available, as well as area for possible move for the library, that would have to be done through some kind of a commitment with another agency that would handle that after the school district could maybe forward that over to them or deed it over to that group. That way, it's not in the coffers of the district to help pay for any of that. We would turn it over, the funding sources that could go through that organization would help to renovate what they need, and then they would operate it as any other municipality operates their sports or community recreation facilities.
Okay. Joe, go ahead.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
As the board, do you just take in consideration the decline in population and actually the feasibility of this whole town?
We tried to.
You know, there's no manufacturing in this community to support the school district, you come down to it, other than the taxpayers and what money comes from the state and federal government. And I'm just hoping that you just take that into consideration. I understand, I'm for students too. There's nothing wrong with being for students, but the population of the student body has declined since I went to Northern Cambria. I graduated in '60. Does anybody know what the high school senior class is for graduation this year?
I think it's in the 70s.
It's about 70.
70 people?
It's in the 70s.
Mine with Spangler was 200. And we had the coal industry and all that. You know, I'm just saying, it's a tough decision those people have to make. But you gotta take in reality, you know? And I understand what Mr. Rocco is saying. He was with the school district, I understand that. And I understand the students too.
It was not my intention or the intention of the committee that I had formed to put the burden on the school district and the taxpayers. It was to find other funding sources so that we could maintain that property, the portion of that property that was useful to us, both for the use of the students as well as the community. We do have a lot of people that walk up at the track, and I think that a lot of people would say that the track is a good asset for our
Oh,
community.
yes, I don't disagree with you there, you know?
Right.
But when you look at the high school up there, the engineers that built that school, it's all glass. Now, when wintertime comes, heating, you know where the heat goes, out the windows and doors and every crack that's in that building. And I don't know what the heating cost was up there, but I would think it was tremendous.
It was tremendous.
Yeah, you know?
And that's part of the reason that we were for the consolidation of, and bringing the students down to this building,
I
because
understand that to save money.
to save money and
Absolutely, and I'm all
stop
for
throwing it out the
I
window.
gave Yunus a big clap when I heard
Thanks.
Yunus was gonna do that. And I agree with what's going on here. But you can't maintain two buildings.
Right.
Once we made the investment down here,
Yes,
something's gotta happen up there.
correct. And it was the intention of the committee to have that building not be the property of the school,
That would be great.
find the funding from government funding and grants as much as we could. It was, if it would have become an expense to the district, that would not have been on the table for us.
Well, I'm just
I just
saying-
want you to understand.
Yeah, for a library though, cannot support that building up there.
No.
You know, that's a nonprofit to start with.
Right,
You know, who's gonna take that building over? I don't know if that the school district could even sell that building. Who would be interested in a building like that?
you're
Start
correct. And we want to be careful about who we sell it to, frankly, and what becomes of it up
Absolutely.
there, because it would be better off demolished than a lot of the
Absolutely.
different options that could be out there, in my opinion. And I don't live in that neighborhood.
with. Okay, I'm sorry for taking up your.
No, I appreciate your comments.
To be fair, we as a board haven't all discussed what the future of the high school is beyond, we have our results from the appraisal, and that's it. We have never all sat down and talked, and so your input is very important. And, you know, we'll take all that into consideration when we meet to discuss our options going forward. We were given many options, and everyone's points are very valid, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Diane, one more
I
time.
just feel like this is backwards. Like, we are here, and there's nothing to listen to. I'm sort of disappointed. I thought I was going to learn something
So the point,
about the high school.
I'm sorry, I
No,
interrupted.
that's all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the point is for us to hear you, and that's why we're here, to hear your opinions, and then we take that into consideration, because no matter what, come the 25-26 school year, there will not be education formally at that building, and that's why we are having this hearing, to hear your input on the closing of the educational portion of that building.
This hearing is a prerequisite to formally closing the high school building as an academic building.
Yeah, if you're doing that in a timeline, that's okay. You know, I just, you know, like, I would like to have input into, I was part of that committee that went on a tour at the high school and was kind of excited. I know someone else who's a grant writer, and, you know, like, I thought, well, maybe I could learn how to help do that. You know, there's other people that were there at the high school for that tour that day, library representatives that are here tonight. So, you know, I think I personally came to learn something, like you're looking at this option or that option, and I think not to just put my opinion before everyone else's, but losing the track and doing something with the track, with, you know, like the gym, because I did track at the height, up there, and I know there's only one toilet. You know, I know there's no heat, I know the water freezes, you know, and I know that the beginning of April, there was sleet and freezing rain, and I was glad to be in the concession stand. So I know all that stuff firsthand, and I was hoping to gain some information, and like, if you would come out and say, well, we're gonna, you know, tear the whole thing down and just make a big hole, or we're gonna give it to I know how this goes across in some communities, you know, like low-income housing, you know, people in that community are gonna be here that aren't here tonight, because I know they went to other things and protested. We don't want we don't want low-income housing in our neighborhoods. So, you know, depending on where you think you might be going, would determine the input you will get from your community. Like,
Diane,
you know,
that's not what this is about.
Obviously not.
This is about letting you know that that building will not be used for instruction anymore
Yeah,
after we open
obviously
this
I
building.
didn't know what
That's
this
all
was
it's about.
about,
It's
but-
not about what we're gonna do with the rest of the building after that time happens.
Obviously.
Okay, we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet, okay? That's all. So your input was, it was just to hear public comment about us closing the building for instruction and to satisfy the needs of the state. That's
Yeah.
what it's about, okay? Everybody good? Okay, since everybody's done here and there's no one else to sign up, I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. And second by Bob Westrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, thank you all for that. The regular meeting